think so.
What letter is this?
Q.
Q. This is indeed a
Hey,
Q.
Froggy.
All right.
Up and Adam. That's what I'm talking about. Gonna be another great show. Hopping in here in the a nice backup channel.
Yes.
A lot of you guys up in here. We already see David Woodruff. Nice. Got first mod in the room. You guys are awesome.
Let me get my there it is.
Got some interesting things to go over this evening. I'll say what's up to everybody.
What is up, everybody?
Hey, what's up? There we go.
We're just
definitely liking the liking the little format here. I got like the green background you got. I like this setup for sure. I like the little nice looking good.
What is everyone up to tonight? We are just jumping in to have a good time.
We're doing a little bit of garage talk earlier. We're everything from the English language to the literacy rate. So we cover a lot of crazy topics in garage talk when we get ready for these shows and things we get into. And so also talking about the still ongoing partial governmental shutdown. See what we got going on. Trying to get the old budget rocking and rolling or not. See how that's going to go.
Getting lots of questions here. Thank you guys. Yeah, we're seeing the gear up, folks, towards a financial burst bubble, right? I mean, what have we been witnessing here?
Well, there's one cannot deny that something very huge is happening in our government even before we started the partial shutdown. You can call it different angles. It may look different ways and different angles like we talked about, but something is happening, and it's very hard to explain it away.
Yeah, it's so if we go into the history of any of the issues we've had, they say there's always an article I just did before this earlier talked about it's always been, man-made in sorts, whether it was let me see here, see if I can pull this back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely things that are man-made are a lot more devious than what our creators made, for sure.
So here we go. There was a quote I read from Thomas Jefferson. Let me get you back on here. Audio, there you are. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies.
Think about that, folks.
So then this article I had read earlier, how many times has it been said the deep state is the enemy of the people, the mainstream enemy of the people, CIA, FBI, DOJ, Democrats, rhinos, U.S. Congress, senior executive service, legal class. Each one is entirely true, as the election of Donald Trump has revealed. In fact, Trump tweets alone have exposed the whole bloody system for what it truly is. Just his tweets, folks. So a huge one to keep in mind is the Fed, especially central banks. Worldwide, they are the real enemy of the people. In fact, the whole world is now witnessing just how dangerous and deadly, reckless and feckless the Federal Reserve Bank Fed can be. So you got this chairman, Jerome Powell, who can intentionally trigger a stock market crash in real time. We're witnessing
any moment. Wow.
So the many bankster institutions, the current Rothschild crime syndicate, are only the latest incarnation of doctrine. So their whole, we've seen this before. They talk about the black nobility of northern Italy in the late 1200s, the Babylonian Brotherhood of ancient Middle East. All these systems have been tried and played with. So, see,
I mean, this is we've told you guys that the backbone, the Fed is what's bringing everything down. I mean, why do they use the eagle? It's not really an eagle. It's a phoenix. It's a sign of Rome. Central banking. It's.
So after
we
they
know
create
that's not
and
good.
fund, we talk about what they basically, people are like, why would they do that? Well, it's like when you get that big to where you play with the money that is created or not created for a country, and the more that you can make them borrow from you, the more your pockets get fatter, because it's based on debt. And so after they create a war, somebody where they'll finance both sides of the war, by the way, to keep it going as long as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Then after they finally do pull out, they rebuild. Countries like us, we normally will rebuild everything we blew apart to make it better and stronger for them. And then that gets borrowed.
New regimes got to be set up. Exactly. So it's
so
war.
They thrive on the war, then they thrive on the disaster after the fact. It's disaster capitalism at its finest, folks, is what it is, I believe. I mean,
I would agree, and we've seen this real time with the Halliburton incident, other companies coming after the cleanup. We've seen this in World War I, World War II. These same financial families not only sold the bullets and the bandages, but also gave loans to each country involved to finance, and worked in tandem with the fuel to sell to each side to generate and keep the war machine going. And then when one country failed and Germany had to pay reparation, the likes of which could never be ever paid, who do you think they had to borrow their money from? The same people that gave them the money in the first place. So if you bring this down, it has ripples effects. This is where it affects the trajectory. I mean, and we've hit on this subject a few episodes now, obviously, because it's in our forefront. It's no longer hearsay of history and something to remember, because it could happen in the future. It's happening now. And I think that's why we've been kind of focusing on this as well, because what can the shutdown bring in the aspects of not just people are going to get paid. The federal employees, they're going to get paid. It's not like it's a huge thing. You don't work, you don't volunteer for the government. You're going to get furloughed. You may not get paid on time. Meyer Amschel Rothschild. Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws.
Ain't that the truth? They figured that out a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the illusion comes in, folks. The grand illusion. You think you're running stuff, and that there tells you it.
Well, and I mean, we're not talking to pull your, hey, you're going to do this, and my money, get cash stocked up. If it's, look what happened in Germany when the Deutschmark dropped. It cost 1 million Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread. People were burning Deutschmarks because the German hyped up Central Bank of Germany couldn't produce enough paper, and people were literally burning it to keep their houses warm.
It was cheaper to burn that than to buy something with it to burn.
You can't. Yeah, exactly. Cash. You're talking that's a reset. I mean, so when
they were under
we're
the
talking
same
about
system, folks. So we've seen this system go away because.
Who did the Nazis borrow their money from to build the tanks and regime? Who did Stalin borrow his money from to get the Russian regime up and going? Well, then who did America borrow its money from? And who did Britain borrow its money from? We can go on and on and on. And so it's like, if everybody's borrowing money, who are they borrowing money from? Well, the international monetary cabal of central bankers, pretty much run by a handful of men.
Yeah, with that don't typically share the same ideals is us. All right, folks. So it's kind of like, this is where we get into that globalism versus nationalism. Do you want a one world, new world type thing, or do you want to have, sovereignty, be a country? You have to decide that. Only you would know what you feel. The programming all these years have led up to about this point, I guess.
Well, this is a classic design. Some of the things that the Matrix movie is a lot of individuals reference that because it's a common ground. People can they can grasp on and get the idea, but it's the delusion is so incredibly strong that what we're talking about is a small little tiny pinhole in the whole entire veil of illusion. And there's many parts and pieces in that comprise that veil of illusion. And you poke just one of them and you're going to peek through to the other side. Mike and I have always said, it doesn't matter what rabbit hole or what eddy we stay in. It kind of always comes to the end result of Luciferianistic ideals, the globalism, one world religion, one world language, one world currency, versus each individual's a king. You retain rights that was given to you by the Creator, God, our Father. It's the duality. People just don't understand the basic idea of you either are a king by God, or you're given that power to a man who's walking around who bleeds just like you. That's what it basically boils down to.
So just to finish up on all this, we'll move on to something else. What do they get the final, well, here you go. A couple of points here. So December 2018, the month of the huge happenings. Hold on. 2018, the year the Fed exposed itself. So now it talks about they're just doing stuff in broad daylight. They've been called out all year by Trump, his tweets. Oh, let me get your mic back on, Ben. There you go.
Nice. Yes, yep. Exactly.
Deep state busting initiatives. Key point. The Federal Reserve Bank is not federal. It's supranational. There's no reserve. It's actually in deep debt. The Fed is really not even a bank. It's a printing press that makes Federal Reserve notes, which are debt instruments, not assets, with real value out of thin air.
Read your Federal Reserve notes. You pull out that dollar bill.
It'd be cool if I could
read
find
the writing
one that
on
is
there.
actually backed. Some of you, like myself, have probably some silver certificates. They're actually tell you something different on there. That was
or if you have like the $2 bills that predate like the early 1900s and things like that. That still says this is redeemable for its value in gold or silver.
Go ahead and read this last part here, Ben, all the way down.
The POTUS really has one option. Dun, 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 to kick butt and take names. The POTUS has only one option at the critical point of U.S. history: military tribunals, why they are absolutely necessary. So this is State of the Nation, December 24th, 2018. Let's see here. Sorry about that. And notes. Excerpt from the Economic Armageddon and Financial Apocalypse are upon us. This is a disclaimer. It is the Federal Reserve System, and it is fatally flawed practice of debt-driven fractional reserve banking that is the object of our scorn and discern. Likewise, it is a Federal Reserve Bank, the Fed, that deserves our condemnation, and swearing criticism. Why? Because the Fed is not legitimate. It is not a properly constituted or correctly legislated organ of the government. And it's actually a privately owned consortium of banking agents whose ownership is more foreign than domestic. The Fed is legally unfit to conduct business on behalf of the American people, since as a private entity, it lacks the congressional oversight necessary when appropriating funds have been allocated by the legislative branch of the government. The printing presses of the Fed produces notes, as in promissory notes, which are nothing but, we gotta scroll up a little bit, instruments of indebtedness for all who possess them. Not too unlike credit cards. Actually, therefore, the money that it prints is counterfeit. It is suppressing that an international, privately owned crime syndicate, which issues fake money, would be the biggest player in the worldwide funny money monopoly game that is bringing the entire world of commerce, finance, and business to a virtual standstill. We are talking about the greatest ongoing financial crisis in recorded history, and the Fed is institutionally public enemy number one, responsible for this multi-decade crime spree. Wow.
Wow, that's what I said when I read it.
Yeah, it's crazy because how true is that? It's incredibly true.
So there was the. So again, folks, I read this full article in the last video. I'm sure some of you checked it out. So, now earlier. Let's see here.
Sorry about that, folks. I had to get some
We're
things
all
out
good.
here.
It's Friday.
There's been a couple of idea. Kimberly Bauer, U.S. gold is held in Fort Knox. Well, I can't say that for sure. I don't know if anybody can unless you're in the Fort Knox. I believe you're right. I think it is in Kentucky. I know that they let the reporters in there, I think in the early 90s, I believe, to do a couple. I think there was a little, is there really gold in Fort Knox? And so I think they did a little a media excerpt on it. And I think that was the last time we saw any real gold, but even then it was a small room, I believe, and they just were able to see and peek inside. That's kind of, we don't know. I know that the Q drops have said that we have gold, and it's going to destroy the Fed. Again, I don't know. That can't be proven or disproven. I want to hope that there is gold in the Fed. I do know that we do hold other countries' gold in our Fed. So, and we know that they've hold like the crown, the precious jewelries and precious crowns from other countries in the Fort Knox before. So
now the Fed building
again,
is
I don't know.
in New York, right? It's underneath the Chase Bank that has the tunnel that goes over across the street to the Fed. There's like a Chase Bank tunnel.
They were there is that in New York, I believe, but
That's
I think
for private
she was talking
people.
about the Fort Knox.
Okay, Fort
that's
Knox.
in Kentucky. That's actually outside, but there is one. Yes, the Chase Bank. There is, I believe. Now, of course, it was mainstream media who put this out, which was, I think, it was the History Channel, the Book of Secrets or something like that. It was a mini series they put out. I think they did like the gold. Where's the gold? And they had a couple of hypotheses.
Wrong information.
So again, it's not really a validated source that we would say yes, that's true because I saw it on TV.
There you go.
Although a lot of people say that about a lot of things. So, put it to you like this, people. If you're gonna based on gold, it's really precious metals, gold and silver, and we still got a lot of gold mines. There's still a lot of silver mines. There's still a lot of stuff in that we have natural resources. It can also be based off of other metals as well. I mean, there's not just. I mean, of course, this is beyond what I would. I'm not, a constitutional framer. That's not my area of expertise.
Well, again,
but we know that
I've heard so we've all heard that the world. We were just talking about Bill Barr, whatever his name is.
Yeah, Bill Burr, the comedian.
We heard something that we both didn't agree with. It was going on and on about the world's overpopulated, and they need to do this, do that. We need to let the earth heal. We're a cancer to it. We've heard this time and time again. Now we've heard we're really overpopulated. How many people have heard that? Oh, we're getting to a point where people are just falling off. There's not enough room. There's an interesting thing going around several years ago, and the state of Texas alone, you can put all 7 billion people on the planet in the state of Texas, and everyone can have 1 acre. And we know that wouldn't be the case, because out of the 7 billion plus, a lot of them are kids, babies, kids that need to live with the adult.
Their families, yeah.
So that wouldn't even take up that much room. There would be a couple per acre. So therefore it would get more, and I would think the way that the media pitches it, that it would be just people on top of people up to the moon, but not the case. So, and then the other angle of that would be, so people cramming. I had another good little, the gold, the amount of gold that we've uncovered. They say is only the amount of a tennis court. I think
stacked 4 feet up high,
and 20, maybe 20 feet. They said, or so many skyscrapers tall, but it wasn't a very high. It wasn't very high.
Yeah, the amount of actually.
Now that'd be solid, but.
Anime says, "Careful, Mike. You were describing redistribution of wealth." Well, I maybe I don't know what you're saying now. I don't think. Well, there was just a commenter says, "Careful, Mike. Anime," no. Which is I respect all of them. It says redistribution of wealth. Well, I don't know if you were saying redistribution of wealth. I think you were talking more along the lines of what they're telling you. If what we have gold. Then we have gold. Okay, I guess we got to trust them like we've trusted them for everything else. I don't know. We haven't physically been there. Kind of like when we have discussions about being rocket fighter pilots. I'm not a rocket fighter pilot. Now, I can do a lot of research and I can become very educated on that topic, but I can never really have firsthand knowledge of what it's like inside a jet fighter in a dogfight. I can have simulated, but if I was never really in that experience, I would really never know actually how it is. I can read all about it. So you can put that in the same thing as a Fed, or even if you have a status of wealth, it's still, it can't be, it's more speculative. And the distribution of wealth, that's still based on the Fed. Because what is wealth based on?
Anime put at my Texas land thing I meant. No, I wasn't talking about redistributing anybody into Texas. I was just saying, let me say this again.
There's a hypothetical.
Some people like to claim, that there's an overpopulation of the world happening. We got 7 billion people on this planet. And when they say overpopulation, I guess that's compared to maybe the resources or something, or what they're trying to put in your head. But I always took it to be like we're getting not enough elbow room, that we're getting overpopulated. Now I know it is like that in some countries where they're really small and they got a lot of people there, so they can feel like that. But that's just because all them people are migrated there and they won't leave. There's plenty of room. What I was saying, you could take all 7 billion people from around the world. Not that we're going to do this. You can take all 7 billion and put them into the state of Texas, and they could all have 1 acreage of land, and there'd still be land left over in Texas that's uninhabitable. But the inhabitable land, it's just something that somebody put together, and it's quite interesting.
So it's comparison. It's letting you know
that the
in
whole
this example
world
that
could live. All the people could live in Texas.
Yeah.
That's
So the overpopulation, i.e., global warming due to man's footprint, all that good stuff, and the Earth is dying, and there's not enough land for us to live on anymore. All that's a fallacy. It's an untruth, because just what Mike gave in that a typical example. So yes, when we talk about what's happening with our economy, I mean, you got to understand, America, the United States, we are very rich in natural resources, natural gas, coal. I mean, all this kind of stuff.
who wants to live in Texas with all the illegals? No, thank you. No, and again, no. And we wouldn't want all 7 billion people put into Texas. We're not talking about that. That was just an example of how underpopulated the world is, or how much room there really is, how much square footage, how much real estate that this place has, all right? So it's all that is, folks. Don't look into it too much. Here, let's jump to the different topic. Go ahead and read this headliner. Oh, let me get your mic on now. There's your mic. There you go. Go ahead.
Nice. Rudy Giuliani says Robert Mueller must be investigated after allowing Spygate evidence to be destroyed, according to naturalnews.com, December 28th, 2018.
So
he's doing the...
Natural News last week, a report by the National Centennial noted that the U.S. attorney appointed by former Attorney General Jeff Sessions in April to investigate the Clinton Foundation, the FBI's probe of Hillary Clinton, and other aspects of the Justice Department's involvement in Spygate, had yet to produce anything. The gist of the report, read more. So they're saying that he allowed a bunch of stuff to be destroyed. Old Mueller, as much as he's hitting up the Trump campaign and digging into people for 8 year ago things, crimes from 8 years ago, and he's allowed to